So this was used as a way to this was used by Nazi Germany to basically promote violence against the Jews. And there's pictures of cartoons with basically like Jews looking really weird or evil, and like them showing them like murdering kids in cartoon form in the Nazi German newspaper. Is that crazy?
Yes. Hold on. Okay, I have to look something up really quick.
Sorry.
All I need is a couple of dollars.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I know I just threw a lot out. All right. I threw a lot out there. But I want to show you this real quick. If you're listening, you don't know, Martin Luther is like the father of the Protestant church.
Yeah.
He's the one that broke away
from... He started the Reformation.
Yes.
The Protestant Reformation.
He broke away from the Catholic Church when it was very... when it was very corrupt.
Yeah.
Like doing a lot of corrupt things.
Yes.
But it's very well known that Martin Luther was like kind of a crazy person in general. And you kind of have to be to rebel against the Catholic Church, because you would have been put to death at the time. You would have been burned at the stake. So yeah, not many people talk about that part of his life.
Right. Yeah.
I see now why, because it's kind of insane. But this is a picture of the German newspaper showing Jews putting babies in I think a boiling pot of hot water or something.
1939. Holy crap. Should we show the camera?
Yeah. So we gotta focus.
Get a good long look.
So that's a lot to think about, but I would say I'm not at the point yet where Bonhoeffer has like started. He's preaching sermons basically against Hitler right now.
Okay.
While you still can. And he's like trying to help the German church unite, and he's basically arguing that you should take care of Jews. Like you should do whatever you can to take care of them. And so I haven't gotten to the point yet where I've like read through his, because he ends up starting like a new denomination basically. And and then eventually goes back he escapes to America, and then he eventually goes back to Germany to become a spy and is in a plot to assassinate Hitler. So I don't know like how he ends up coming about that theological conclusion yet. So I'm not like that far along in my research.
Okay.
But the main thing I want to end on, because I want to give some time to kind of talk about this, is that the whole setup with the whole deist thing between Nazis and the humanists and then like the deist founding fathers is that I believe that the danger of the deistic or the humanistic approach is that it leaves a vacuum for something else to fill God's role in your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
So biblically, if we look, we talked a lot biblically last time about kind of what Jesus says about government, like governmental, or like Christians' influence in government. And it's basically like give to Caesar what's Caesar. And then you have Peter say, fear God, honor the emperor. And the emperor was Nero, and Nero was crucifying and burning Christians. Okay. Yeah. So I believe that at the fundamental level, the basic problem with American Christianity is that it is too easy to make the idea of American Christianity the God that you serve instead of actually serving Christ.
Right.
And one thing that actually our pastor said last, so then we kind of like, this kind of merges with our conversation about the kingdom of God.
Right.
And something that our pastor said was, every rebellion is about gaining power, right? And a lot of the Q-Anon movement is based on bringing justice to these really, really evil people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically preached that it needs to be done through violence, if necessary. And so this quote says, every rebellion is about gaining power, but everything about the kingdom of God is giving away power. And I thought that was really interesting, and especially considering how when Jesus was in front of Pontius Pilate, and when Jesus was in front of the Sanhedrin and was asked to defend himself when he was accused of something he didn't do, he didn't even defend himself.
Right.
Obviously, in that case, he knew that his ultimate goal was to die on the cross. So I'm not saying that like no Christian should ever defend themselves. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just observing the scriptures. That's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Okay. I am concerned that we think a lot of times that American Christianity or Christian nationalism is really, really, really close to or the same as following Jesus biblically. And the more I'm researching, the more I've come to the conclusion that that cannot be true based on the evidence. And in fact, most people serve an American God and don't serve Jesus.
Yeah.
And when you do serve an American God, everything about the QAnon movement, everything about Christian nationalism makes sense. Everything about it tracks. Right?
Yes.
But the idea inherently is so think about this, dude. So think about this. The inherent belief system of most of the QAnon, I would say like literature or propaganda or memes or whatever, is we are divinely appointed and empowered in order to accomplish and serve justice to these evil people. And it is our duty, in fact, to restore good ethical standing to America because it's falling.
Yeah.
That is like the foundational belief.
Yes.
As to what I've researched so far. And I believe that is not just a little bit, it is entirely in opposition to following Christ and what he says to do. And that does not mean, though, that you shouldn't defend your country. That does not mean that you shouldn't be a good American. Two things can be true.
Yeah.
I believe that you should be very patriotic. You should serve your country. You should vote. You should take care of your fellow American. You should take care of you should take care of your neighbor, right? Like everyone is endowed to these rights. Like it's a beautiful thing. So don't hear me saying that I don't think that American Christianity is necessarily biblical all the time, to me saying that you shouldn't like be an American. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think both can be true.
Yeah.
But I think the error is in conflating and combining both and saying that these are the same thing, and that America was founded on Bible-believing, Jesus-following Christians, when that's not entirely the case. Sure, some of them were.
Right.
Some of them were. Yeah.
Yes.
But the big ones weren't. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, I think it's okay to come to that conclusion. And it's like burst a lot of my bubbles personally, honestly, on how my perceptions I had growing up. And there was one more little snippet I wanted to kind of read to you. Gosh, I know this is so much, but it's just fascinating to me, dude. Ooh, I think I took a screenshot of them. Oh, let's go. All right, check this out. So this is an article on QAnon specifically. QAnon's brand of so just to give you context, they did a study on Telegram channels
Yeah. Okay.
of like QAnon groups.
Yeah.
And they took all the memes and the pictures that they sent, and they analyzed them and wrote like an article about it, right? Okay. QAnon's brand of pseudo-Christian extremism defines the need to act violently in society as a religious duty by portraying the battle against the forces of evil as a theological necessity.
Mm-hmm.
The fight against a largely Jewish satanic cabal governing the world is simultaneously a biblical battle ordained by God and a real political struggle played out in the dynamics of U.S. presidential politics. As with earlier liberation theology movements, QAnon Christian extremism connects its theology to socio-political activism. That's a lot. That's a lot. That was like a lot of big words. But I guess my final point is basically like, it is really scary when you observe the parallels between the steps that the Nazi Party took to justify violence, ultimately the mass extermination of Jews through the propaganda they used.
Right.
And the current, like it says, pseudo-Christian extremism, where the whole thesis is it's your duty to act violently in society as a religious duty, and that the battle between good and evil is purely physical.
Yeah.
That's really scary to me.
Yes.
And it should be really concerning. Now, here's a caveat. In no way is this even like close to like where we are right now in America to when the Nazis gained power.
Right, for
like,
sure.
The Nazis, they had a very specific like political agenda, and they accomplished it kind of crazy, like very swiftly. They accomplished it by shutting out the news outlets. Like they completely gained power. But Hitler had tried to do that like for 10 years. He tried to gain power. And he went to jail for a few years, got out of jail. He wrote Mein Kampf in jail, got out of jail, ran again, and then basically burned down. He had someone burn down the building that held the Constitution for Germany. And then abolished everyone's rights in the same day. That's so different than America.
Right.
So I want to just point out that like there are a ton of differences, major differences.
Yeah, yeah.
We still have a relatively free press. Does it have problems? Yeah, sure. Every country can have problems. Like, do our leaders, does racism exist in America? Yes, absolutely, but not nearly to the level that
definitely
it was in
not.
Nazi Germany, right? So I'm not by any means claiming that we're on the same track.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that the theological and the political parallels are enough to where it's a little scary.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that we should really consider
definitely not something to ignore.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know everything I just said is so wild, and I hope I never watch this podcast back in a freaking jury room where I'm being like tried for this. But
oh, dude, there's
I've been going down
many
a rabbit trail.
I could take you further down that rabbit hole.
I bet you could, dude. I bet you could. But I want to hear your thoughts on that because I just talked for a long time and I'm really tired of talking.
I don't even know where to begin, dude. Okay, let me back up. So, all right, buckle up, dude. Okay.
I'm ready, dude.
So
I'm buckled.
let's go back. Let's go back to like 1500 Jews,
Okay.
right? So a lot of people don't know this, but there's a group of people. Gosh, this is like
Let it out, dude. Let it out.
this is like some conspiracy like rabbit hole stuff, dude. Okay, but like you can look this crap up. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Do your own research, people.
yes, do your own research. Okay, so it's just so funny that you talk about this because this is something I went down this rabbit hole, dude,
Yeah.
in like a kind of a different direction.
Yeah.
Like 2020.
Yeah.
So there's a group of people, like an ancient group of people called the Khazars.
Yeah.
And so they were, I can't remember like how far back they originate, but there were people that supposedly were known
Mhm.
to be like, they just weren't like liked.
Yeah.
And they worshipped, I can't remember if they worshipped the god Moloch
Yes.
or if they worshipped, or it was either Moloch or another god like similar.
Yes.
And so the god Moloch is like a very satanic cult
yes.
god.
For sure.
And it's a god it's the same god that the Canaanites worshipped,
Yes.
like in the Old Testament. And this god did require children, like child sacrifice.
Yes.
So it was a real thing.
Yes, for sure.
So a lot of people, so like a lot of surrounding
Mhm.
nations, empires, whatever, like did not like the Khazarians, like
Okay.
at all. But eventually the story goes that they made their way down to, okay, I don't remember all the details right now because it's been like 4 years since I researched all this, but somehow they kind of like ingrained themselves into Jews to where there's like a sect of Jews called the Ashkenazi Jews. Okay. And these Jews apparently originated from the Khazarians.
Ooh. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so these were almost like false Jews.
Yeah.
And so the story goes supposedly that like all these claims of like they were the reason why that people like started to hate the Jews. Like they almost like made a bad name for like actual Jews. And this is where people like Rothschild, right? Like he was a Jew. Like that family goes way back to the time of Martin Luther. And like that's how like they rose to power from like money laundering, like doing like lending money to all these different countries for wars and whatever. But so that in of itself is just like super interesting.
Yeah.
Because that just, it just opens up a whole nother line of like.
Yeah. Okay, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I was going to say something about that. I think that, again, dude, with this podcast, I feel like we always come down like in the middle of stuff, which is like kind of frustrating. We almost like create a middle ground, which is kind of frustrating because it's way easier to go to one side or the other. And so like with this research that I'm doing in particular, I have not found any reason to disbelieve that there is like a group like that, or that there are evil people trying to gain global power.
Right.
I think that is totally possible. I think it is probable. Right?
Yeah.
I think
if you just look at the human track record,
dude. Yeah.
People since the dawn of time have been trying to gain power.
For sure.
So like it's nothing new. It shouldn't be surprising, really.
And
like
further, I'm not against the idea that really, really terrible things like child sacrifice or whatever happen. And like, that's not, I'm still like formulating all these ideas. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. And I think that those people do exist for sure.
Yeah.
And by no means am I trying to say that like to think that is conspiratorial at all. My concern is how the Nazis made a little small group of a Jewish sect into all Jews.
Yes. Okay. So this is the point I'm getting to.
Okay.
Because it, like, to me, that makes sense. Like, to me, that makes sense of why, like, how come out of nowhere you have someone like Martin Luther, who was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But like, out of nowhere, you just like hate Jews.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't make sense to me that it was just for no reason. Yeah. Like, it makes more sense to me that there were these Ashkenazi Jews that were probably doing things that, like, yeah, maybe it's definitely possible that it was like exaggerated or kind of like, you know, blown out of proportion or whatever. But that makes sense to me. That like, so the reason why it's important is because this just all ties back to the fact that you have to do your own research. Like, you have to. You have to be able to, just like we were just talking about at the beginning, like critically thinking.
Yes.
Like, you have to be able to think individually. Like, that's why groupthink is so dangerous.
Exactly.
Because so even now, you like fast forward all the way to today with Q-Anon, right?
Yeah.
Q-Anon, like, a lot of people don't know this, but the phrase Q-Anon was actually started like by like the mainstream media. Like, a lot of people don't know that. It's like the real term is just it's just Q. It's Q, and then like you have like there are anonymous people on the forums, right?
Yeah.
But the phrase Q-Anon specifically, like, you will never see a mainstream media thing refer to it as Q. It's always like this Q-Anon thing because it's like they've created a false whatever, like idea or whatever of what the actual thing is. Yes, because people have taken the things that like Q says, whatever, right? And they exaggerate it and they blow it out of proportion. That's why you have these crazy Christian nationalists, like extremists, that just go off the rails.
Yeah.
And that is why, again, you have to be able to critically think for yourself and analyze the evidence, because I could say the same thing for the other side as well. Like, woke ideology
for sure
has, like, there
100%.
are people that go way off the rails, and that's why you have literally propaganda for like transgenderism, right? Like
100%.
Like, you can go down through all that, down the line with that, like transgender, you know, children getting surgery, right? Like doing all those crazy things. So, like, yes, it is like kind of, I don't know. I don't want to ride the fence too much.
Yeah.
Right? And like,
for sure.
I don't know. But it's important to be able to cipher through and find that middle ground instead of just like,
it's intellectually lazy to just pick one side without doing research.
Yes, and dangerous.
It's very dangerous
because that's how you get wrapped into
100%
these crazy cults, dude, and these crazy like ideologies. So it's the same for like both ways.
100%. I think what you're saying is so valid, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this paper, because I wanted to do a deeper dive into, you know, what is the Q movement? What is the Christian nationalist movement? Like, what I have to really be able to understand these things in order to properly think about it.
Yes.
Right. And so many people don't take the time to understand what they believe in or what they don't, or what they believe against. There is one thing I wanted to kind of push back on, if you don't mind, is so like when you're thinking of how could German people just hate Jews, like there's got to be a reason. I thought about like, why did people in the South just not like African Americans? Like, why? What was the reason that slave owners thought it was okay to, assault their slaves or to buy African Americans as slaves? I don't know. I'm asking, but I'm also just wondering of like, I don't know if there always has to be a reason. I think the reason could just be, I think I'm better than you.
I feel like that to me doesn't make sense at all. Like, I don't think that Americans.
Well, yeah, because you're not racist.
I know, but but just like reasonably, it doesn't make sense for people to wake up all of a sudden and be like, oh, I just hate this like race of people. Like slavery goes back way before America. Like people, but before people came to like move to the Americas, like Africans enslaved their own people already.
For sure.
So like this was already a deep rooted problem that like transitioned to America.
Sure.
And so that like you can see how that like that system, like whatever, like gradually evolves into that's what I'm saying, is that like Americans just didn't wake up one day and was like,
for sure,
all of a sudden I hate this. Like it was a process of like probably hundreds of years that brought them to that like perspective.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying is possible for the Ashkenazi Jews and regular Jews, is that like if you have these people, if it's true that you have these people, the Khazarians, that were terrible people, they did worship a god that like that did like child sacrifice. And then they go and make a bad name for like all actual Jews. Like that makes sense to me. That like all of a sudden Germans just didn't wake up and were like, yeah, Jews are terrible people. Like that's.
Well, and if you think about it too, like it probably is a multitude of things all combined. It probably, like if I'm putting myself in a German, like a full blood German's shoes, and I grew up hearing stories about the Ashkenazi people, right? And like, little bedtime stories about don't go at night, you might get kidnapped by a Jewish person and sacrificed. Like if I hear that growing up, and then now I'm in my early 20s, post World War I, maybe I fought in the war, maybe I have PTSD, whatever. And then all of a sudden my country is in ruin, financial ruin, hyperinflation. And I look to my leaders, and most of my leaders are Jewish. Now it's a self-reinforcing belief that just continues to grow. Now all of a sudden I have this leader who comes up who says, hey, the reason you're experiencing all these problems is not because of you, it's because of this certain race of people. Bingo. That now is like confirmed all my racist thoughts beforehand.
Right.
Like I think it could be all of those.
I agree. That's why. Okay, so let's take that same track and apply it to today, where right now, like if you have a lot of these Christian nationalists, or even it doesn't even have to be Christian, like people who are just like America all the way, like guns a-blazing, fight against the government or whatever, right? Like
major libertarian.
Like you could see how it can evolve eventually to where it's like,
that's all I'm saying.
To where it's like, we have like one bad politician. It's like, freaking hang him, like in front of like the whole country, right? It's like
people think that's crazy to say, but when you read how it happened in Germany, it is so subtle.
It
is so
because
subtle,
it's a subtle process of like of years. But
the easiest thing to do when something goes wrong is to have a scapegoat.
And blame that's why, dude. That's why, like, it all goes back to the same thing. Like, even if the government, like, you have all these bad politicians, even if you have people like Epstein, and like, which we have, like, it's happened. Like, we had those people.
Proven that was terrible. And that really happened.
Even if that's true, like, you cannot use that as an excuse
Yes.
To
legitimize violence.
Yeah,
or to take justice in your own hands.
Even to just justify your like bad character. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
At the end of the day, you are responsible for who you become. Like regardless of the circumstances. Like like okay, take for instance MAHA, right? Make America healthy again.
Okay.
Like this is going to be huge for America for sure.
100%.
And as great as it is, like at the end of the day, you're still 100% responsible for the health choices. Yeah, what you eat, the decisions you make for your health. Like
that's so true. That's
like
a great
as
analogy.
bad as the health has, like, you know, the health track has been for America these past however long, like however many years. There are people who are still healthy because they chose to do their own research. They chose to make healthy decisions for themselves. So they didn't use that as an excuse to just be unhealthy. That's the difference.
Exactly. So I think the message we're trying to say is don't be intellectually lazy.
Yes.
Do your own research. Like disagree, agree, but do it based on your own research. Don't just watch someone else's video and say, oh, this makes sense. Like this is the worldview I'm picking right now. Because it's lazy.
It is.
Like do the work. Do the work. Find your sources. Figure out why you believe what you believe.
Yes. Because it is work. It's hard, especially today, dude, because there's so much information available.
Yeah.
So
to sift through.
Yes. So you really have to be diligent. But it's so rewarding. Yeah. Like when you feel like you have a responsible understanding of these things, like of all these different things.
True. Well, stay tuned for our third installment of this, in which we may actually be able to talk about what you should do as a Christian in these situations.
Holy crap.
That actually really helped me to be able to like synthesize what I've been reading for the past 2 weeks. I appreciate you listening to that.
Yeah, dude. I was very intrigued. Very intrigued.
Had you locked in, dude? I knew it. I was like, he's going to love this.
That was good. Well, yeah, I have a lot to think about, dude.
I feel like we probably just triggered all 50 people that watch this episode.
Yeah. If there's ever an episode that like could get canceled, it could be this one, dude.
Hey, can't demonetize this if we're not even making money.
That's true.
Hey,
that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yeah, we went down the rabbit hole, dude.
We did. Hey, but hey, that's the beauty of America. Free speech. You get to talk about things that are crazy.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong, dude. I'm not an armchair quarterback. I freaking love this. I love living in America. Anytime I leave and I get back, I'm always like, whew, made it out. Or I made it back. Like,
yeah.
It's just the level of freedoms that we enjoy today is literally the most ever in history. And I never want to come across as ungrateful for that.
Right.
I had two grandpas who served in the armed forces. Like I never want to come across as ungrateful for the time that I live in. I'm simply exercising my right to critically think and speak freely.
Yeah. Maybe next episode we'll start burning books.
Oh my gosh. Dude, I wonder how many parts of that podcast could be cut up and make us look like absolute terrible people.
Probably a lot, dude.
We just gave our future haters so much ammo.
We did. I'm here for it, dude.
I'm here. Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
I'm not scared.
Gosh. Okay, really quick. That is one thing that, like, what fascinated me the most, I think, about what you were talking about is the parallel between humanism for the early founding fathers and like Germany during that time. That's super interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I got the whole humanist thing 100% right, so maybe someone can fact check me on that, but I'm still processing a lot of this.
Yeah.
But well, thanks for listening, everyone. Tune in next time. Or thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode of Second Floor Experience. But until then, peace.
I want to talk to you. Not now, later. No, now.